Hi everyone, William here with the 1915 Grand Duke Dmitri Diary series. We are switching gear a bit. We're in the same year, but a kind of different format. Our recap, we had some interesting visits to Kshestinska and Mikhin, both of which came as kind of a surprise. And more significantly, I suppose, it was the end of the diary for almost 4 months. 24th of February, Dmitri's last diary entry until the 19th of June, which is where we resume today. I don't know why. I understand in his Shots Out diary why he started writing after he had this ordeal with botched surgery and another surgery to correct it, and his life hung by a thread for a while. But in this instance, who knows? Because he's still in Petrograd. He hasn't gone off to the front. And maybe he did for a while and then came back. That's certainly possible. Anyway, when he did resume, he was writing very short diary entries. So, they're kind of almost like lists, but don't flee from that. The videos have been doing so well lately that now I'm a little anxious that viewers are going to take a break because of the nature of these diary entries. But we have a fascinating list of people and sometimes events. I started out today with the intention of doing 6 diary entries. I translated 6 diary entries, but then when I started writing my notes, I realized that things had gotten out of hand. There were just too many people to talk about. So I'm doing 4, and we'll see how that goes. When you have this number of people, you kind of do have to spend a lot of time sort of filling in the blanks for the purpose of the videos. Having said that, I didn't do the best job that I could have done today. I did an all-nighter last night, really immersed in my book that I'm writing, and that works when you're 29. It doesn't work so well when you're 59, but anyway, I'm tired and so a little lazy, and I didn't do as much digging as I could have done into my own notes, into the Russian Wikipedia, into Natasha and Alexandra's notes. So it just is what it is, and as always, if any of you have information independent of mine, please do comment. Please do send that in. Okay, so we start out with the 19th of June, which on the new calendar was 2nd July, and here it goes. Mielovsky, period. Lunch with Papa, period. Afternoon with Felix Yusupov, Tornow. Tea with Countess Benkendorf. She had dinner with us. All right, 20th June / 3rd July, Mielovsky. Lunch with Shagubatov and GM. Afternoon with Babushka. Then Johnson. Spent the evening alone. 21st June / 4th July. Spent the morning in bed. Lunch with GM. Afternoon with Tornow. Dinner alone with Shagubatov. Evening alone. Mielovsky. 22nd June / 5th July. Mielovsky. Lunch à deux with GM. Felt worse at night. Afternoon alone. Then Nikolaev. I slept without a bandage. Okay, what do we have going on here? Well, the very first question that has to be asked, because I don't know the answer, is who the heck is Mielovsky? He's never before been mentioned in any of Dmitri's diary entries or letters, going all the way back to the first ones that I have in 1906. And all of a sudden, not only is he mentioned, but he's mentioned daily. And often the first person that Dmitri mentions, which means he's coming in the morning. And then sometimes Dmitri will note, for instance, on the 21st, he doesn't come in the morning. All the other days he comes in the morning, but on the 21st, he comes at night. So I don't think he's a doctor. My guess is that he is maybe a new adjutant. If he was a servant, if he was a valet, for instance, Dmitri would not be mentioning him. So, Shagubatov still comes up, his adjutant that we know of. But Mielewski was some kind of person attached to his service, what I think, rather than a friend, but a gentleman, not a servant in the sense of an employee or just an employee. All right, so we'll have to, mark that place and see if we can find out who he is. So in the first entry, Yusupov makes an appearance. The last time Dmitri saw him was when he was recovering from his tonsillectomy, and he just really, didn't want him there. Felix, he said, was absent-minded himself and was boring. So anyway, now he makes another appearance, and unfortunately, we don't know what's going on with that. He spends the afternoon with Felix and with Mikhail Tornow, which is kind of an odd combination because Tornow was a fellow Horse Guards officer, so a fellow officer from Dmitri's regiment, the same rank as Dmitri. Why are Yusupov and Tornow, are they spending, the language is ambivalent because of the way these diary entries are written. Does that mean Felix Yusupov came over and Tornow also came over, but they didn't come over together? I don't know. Anything to do with Yusupov, I of course long for more information. Okay, so the next rendezvous is also interesting. This is a woman we've encountered before, Countess Benkendorf. She was called Ella. Her marriage to Benkendorf was, I think, her second. She was 13 years older than Dmitri, which made her prime territory for him. That was about the age range he liked. And he'd seen her back in winter. He talked about her a couple times, about seeing her. So I wonder if she was one of these women friends that he had, that he always seemed to have, so that he could be less reserved and confide more in someone and get some emotional support, or if she was someone he was actually pursuing. That I can't answer. Again, frustrating. Anyway, she stays and has dinner, or what does he say about whether they're at her place or his place? I have to look at that real quick. Great, I think I managed to miss that. Where are we? Oh, well, but the way he puts it, it's odd because she had dinner with us. So what does that mean? Who else was at dinner? Usually he specifies, even if it's just laming, he specifies who is having dinner with him on any given day, or he with them. Well, oh well. Okay, 20th of June, we move on to Johnson. Johnson makes another appearance, and if you recall, again, back in the winter diary entries, Johnson, as part of Brasova's entourage, was quite present in Dmitri's life. Now here we have Johnson popping up, and there will be other members coming up of Michael, Grand Duke Mikhail's household. There are the ones Johnson, I think, was his private secretary, but he really seems to be much more often with Brasova than with Michael. And then in tomorrow we'll have an adjutant of Michael's turning up. So I don't know. I think Michael, I think he definitely had his issues with Dmitri, but because of the wife, right? But yeah, there's a connection between Dmitri and Michael's household. I'm not quite sure where that comes from. He and Johnson apparently had kind of hit it off, so if they just like to hang out together, then why not? And Brasova isn't mentioned. She will be soon, but not yet. Okay, so the next person who is of importance who turns up is Babushka, the Dowager Queen of Greece, the daughter of the great Grand Duke Konstantin Nikolaevich. I'm sure you've heard me talk about him before. He's definitely the Grand Duke that I admire. And she was, I think, 71 years old at the time, and she's in Russia. She was a real Russophile. I mean, she was Russian, right? She was raised in Russia. Then she married George I of Greece, but she spent as much time as she could in Russia. And if you want to read the best account that I've ever come across, go to the Fabritsky book, the one I've already recommended, because it really lays out what a legal adjutant to the emperor did. And he also, aside from Russia, the Dowager Queen of Greece, her great passion was seafaring. Her father had been a naval man, an admiral, and anytime there was a ship that came in from Russia to a port in Greece, she went down personally, and she met not only with the officers but the sailors. And since Fabritsky was, since he was himself an admiral, not at that time, but himself a naval officer, he was invited to one of the Greek palaces to spend the night, to spend time with her. He met other members of the Russian imperial family there, and so it's just an amazing account. The title of the book, which I myself translated into English, is Of Bygone Days. The name is Fabritsky. All right, so she's there, and I'm not real clear on the relationship between her and Dmitri and Maria among her other grandchildren. She seems to have been more attached to the Konstantinovichi, but who were not her grandchildren. They were her nieces and nephews. She doesn't seem to have spent a lot of time with Dmitri and Maria, although I believe when their father kind of just abandoned them and went off to France with his new wife and little boy, I believe that Grandma and Grandpa, not just the Queen, as you can tell, I've forgotten her name now. Oh, Olga. And their grandfather, their Danish grandfather, who was king of the Hellenes, came and spent some time with them, which was kind and was important. And he doesn't have much to say about her in the diaries overall. When he's a child, he notes that his grandfather has given him a watch and that he really likes it. But other than that, but here she is, and her grandson takes her. Whether he drove himself or accompanied her in his car, he takes her to visit the Dowager Empress at the Yelagin Palace. So that's nice, grandmother and grandson got to spend a little time. A kind of funny anecdote, although not a nice one. David Chavchavadze, I had the great privilege of getting to know, and he was my mentor for translation. We were in daily contact for several years, and I also like to go visit him in Washington, D.C., and, so he told me some things that I thought were very interesting. He might not like me to share this story, but he thought it was funny. But, yeah, he met the Dowager Empress, his grandmother, because another of her daughters was Grand Duchess, or his great grandmother. Another one of her daughters was Grand Duchess Maria, who married Grand Duke. All these names, who married Grand Duke Georgy Mikhailovich, and so she was little David's great grandmother. And when he met her for the first time, I think he was, like 5 or 6. He was a little guy, and for some reason, and apparently his parents didn't know about it, his Russian nanny had a real antipathy for Greek people. Good Lord, where did that come from? I have no idea. So when he met his grandmother, and Greek people cover your ears, he actually called her a dirty Greek. He'd heard that from his nanny, and of course that didn't go over well at all. The poor Dowager Queen. Anyway, I should also mention that she was Dowager. She was a widow because her husband was assassinated in 1913 in Greece, and so Dmitri, both of his grandfathers were assassinated, also Alexander II, which is quite a legacy. So why is he spending time alone more than he usually does? As we know from the winter diary entries, he was constantly on the move, and he wasn't really connecting to people so much, but he was on the move. He wasn't spending time alone, but now he is. He's spending the evenings alone. When he says he spent the morning in bed, well, he was known to do that, but usually after big parties, and he's not mentioning any parties, so what's going on with that. And then he talks about this problem, feeling better in the morning, but he still has this problem. He has to sleep with, this is the first time he didn't sleep with some kind of bandage, and I'm not clear with the actual Russian. Here he says "без крахмальной повязки," so that's definitely a bandage. But the крахмальной part is like starch. It's like some kind of stiff bandage. So I thought maybe a cast, but he wouldn't be taking a cast off for the night. I guess he could saw one off, but I think he would mention that. And so what's going on with him? Why the sort of stiff bandage or cast? I wouldn't have known, except Natasha and Alexandra sent a note along with this saying that he'd had a leg injury, and they didn't specify how they'd found out about that. But anyway, I'll ask them about that later. So this seems to explain why he is kind of in a different mode at the moment. People who ride horses, unfortunately, seem to have constant ankle and leg injuries, as I know from friends of mine who are equestrians. So it's not that surprising, and he would have other leg injuries, serious ones, later on after the revolution. But anyway, that's what's going on. The 22nd, the last diary entry. I am thinking maybe Nikolaev was a doctor. I seem to associate that name with him being a doctor, although if he was a doctor, he was coming in the evening. But I'm not sure about that. So this was the one that I really dropped the ball on because the name sounds so familiar, so I should have looked through my notes, but I didn't. Okay, he slept badly. That is about it, isn't it? So, let me know what you think about this. I thought we were going to race through this, and here we are 20 minutes in, and, I'm glad I cut off the other 2 diary entries and saved them for tomorrow, because otherwise it just wouldn't be feasible. But let me know what you think. If you like these, if you don't like these, they go through November. So that's what we're going to have for a while. So feedback would be welcome. And next time, we have a new woman that he's mentioning and spending time with. And we have the first that I've come across with Dmitri, the first instance of a kind of a Grand Ducal lunch. You know, all the other Grand Dukes seem to have had the days when they had an open house and people came to lunch. Sometimes it was often, it wasn't just one day. Well, Dmitri didn't do that. So this is a rare instance of that. So yeah, please do come back. Bear with me on these. I'm getting used to how to tackle them, and I'll see you next time. Bye.